Hello to all my booty seekers and cheek chasers. This is the Carpe Natem Podcast. I'm your host, Nate De La Hoya-Reynoso, and I am so grateful you are listening to this episode. If you're new here, you should know that I believe that my purpose is to uplift, inspire, and educate others to communicate masterfully so that they can better understand themselves and the world around them. I've spent years in the personal development and transformational technology space, and I want to share with you the wisdom that was passed down to me from giants in the industry. So if you're on a journey of self-mastery, just like me, looking to make dreams a reality and willing to be a leader for your family and community, then join me in seizing the butt cheeks of life and giving them a big ol' squeeze. Let's jump into the show. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Carpe Natem. I am so stoked to have Jublar in my home. This man is a comedian. He is the host of the Beer Mic at Vegan Nom. He is a scientist, which I am just figuring out, and the host of the amazing comic book podcast, Nerd Escape. Jublar, welcome.
How's it going? Nice to be here.
So excited to have you, man. I would love for the audience to get to know you a little better, and I would love to hear a little bit about you and how you would describe yourself, because you are such an interesting human being and you wear so many different hats. It's hard to describe you as just one thing.
Yes, I guess I would hope that everyone in the world, it'd be hard to describe them just one thing, you know? I don't know. Kind of trying to think of something clever there. But Jublar is a made-up name, if you did not know, everyone. It is my comedy name. Is
it? Yes. Because I believed you when you... Because I respect people's names. If somebody wants to go by a name, and then there's like people who are like, okay, Andrew Dice Clay.
Yes.
Andrew, since the first part is a real name, I would assume the other two are real too, but those are both fake names too. How'd you come up with Jublar?
So I used to like tag things like tables, not big things, like take a marker and tag like a bench or something. And also in the cement, when it's like fresh, you put your name in it. So I'd put my real name. I'm not going to tell you all my real name. You can figure it out. If you know me, you know my real name. But I would put my full name, and then I'd get caught like doing graffiti and stuff.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Which is dumb. Of course I got caught. I'm an idiot. And so I was like, you know what, I've always said that thing like bleh, like a lot. Like, you know, when you text like BLEH, I would say that a lot. And then so I was like, Jublar. And then I was like, whatever, Jublar. So I just started signing it as Jublar.
Interesting. Yeah. So it was just kind of like an off the cuff improv.
Yes.
And then it ended up leading to be your name.
And people have like guessed like why. Here's a really good one. How hablar is said. It means to speak in Spanish. Hablar.
Hablar, yeah.
And basically someone's like, yeah, the J is pronounced with the H's, you know, the pronunciation.
Right.
And so he's like, you had hablar because it's like, you know, Jublar, but it's a, you know, a play on words. And I was like, that would be really cool because I'm actually half Mexican too. So I was like, but that's not it.
Is that where the impressive mustache comes from?
This might be a mixture of Mexican and Scottish, I think. Yeah.
Both impressive cultures with impressive mustaches.
Yes. And I have bits about it where it's just like, we will outwork you and we will outdrink you. That's for sure.
I mean, it's very true. You got two of the most like persistent, hardworking cultures mixed into one because the you said Scottish or Irish?
Scottish and Mexican and a little bit of Japanese and Cuban.
Definitely some of the most interesting types of people because you got just a little bit of everywhere. Your ancestors are just coming from all over the place, and the one thing they had in common is they all like to fuck.
Japanese in like strange ways. Yeah, the Japanese culture.
I'm glad that people in your family's bloodline were affiliated with the tentacle culture and the whole. You know, that was art.
I found out. I read a samurai book recently, and it was about the black samurai. I think his name's Sasuke. Mm-hmm. I might be pronouncing it wrong, but it was actually a history like book on that, like his era. And it turns out that the king, like the emperor or like the clan leader, he would sleep with all his male samurais.
Oh my!
And then male samurais would take their squires, like a knight does, and that happens with the kid.
That's
like real in samurai culture, but it's like
also
but it's
real
love. They like love each other.
It's also super
bond.
real in like Greek and Roman culture too. Because
yes.
I was a big fan of God of War, and then that's what got me into like mythology. So I ended up picking up this big book from Costco about mythology. It was like stacked. It was huge, and I read through it. And the stories of Hercules, he had boy lovers.
Oh yeah,
and one of them being. What is it when you
going down this path right now?
What do you call yourself when you're really into what you look like?
Whenever the guy is staring at the water, narcissist staring at the pond, yes.
And he ended up drowning himself.
Yes.
Hercules boy lover.
Okay,
so that's how those two stories are connected, and that's why Hercules wanted him so badly because he was so beautiful, and and then Spartans would do it too. They would all.
Oh yeah, okay.
When they had a boys' night out in the wartime.
They're Japanese. So back to that was. I go on tangents all the time. It's going to happen.
Perfect.
You're going to get to choose what you want to put on this podcast.
Perfect. You're also a scientist, which I fucking love.
But yes, but then Jublar actually is a Swedish word. It's a phrase, and ironically, or coincidentally, if you want to put it that way, it means jubilation, crowd pleasing, and like applause.
Do you feel like you as a person fit that name? And it's interesting that you kind of stumbled upon it accidentally, almost.
Kind of, I guess. With comedy, it's like, man, I don't know. We're going to get into it, but I do it. It is great to make people laugh, but even whenever like you bomb and stuff, like I still take a learning experience from it. Like,
same here.
Like I even like, you know, because I'm not the type of bomb where I'm going to say something totally offensive and just like lose the crowd, and I'm just like, oh shit, that was funny. Fuck all y'all. Because you go over days of different types of like attacks people have, and I'm more just like, okay, moving on to the next joke.
And you've seen it all as the host of a really great mic on Thursdays in Austin. You've moved to different locations, but every time you've hosted it, there's always a great crowd. You always have real people in the audience. The people that get surrounded, like everywhere that they set this up, you end up having like a really great vibe in comparison to like when you go to the Creek, it's all comics. When you go to the 18th in Austin, the one on top, you get crowd people too because they go to the bar, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a different vibe, and I like your mics. So you've seen it all. You've seen every stage reaction from comics.
I'll say I probably haven't seen it all, but God, I just want to say real quick, God bless all the hosts who host open mics, and they've been doing it for years.
Years.
I think I'm like going on 2 years in it, and you know, maybe not even 2 years, like with the time we took off. Got people who've been doing it for years, the same like mic and just holding it down. God bless them, because they've seen probably the same routine of like someone over and over.
And I've seen it too, just being at open mics where it's I don't want to talk trash about anyone specifically, so I will just speak in general.
Me neither.
I've noticed that if you are at a mic where it's all comedians and you know most of the comedians, for me, there's almost an incentive to write new material. And I've seen people deliver a line or a joke that they have done so many times. And it's just like, retire it. Like, play it for crowds that haven't seen you before, but I've seen you at 7 different mics this week. You've said that joke 5 times.
I think if a comedian sees like 2 or 3 people they've never seen before, and they're just like, I gotta give my good shit, man. This is my moment.
No, I'm guilty of that too. You're right. I'm guilty of that too.
But for me, like when I used to go to open mics, shout out to Kick Butt Coffee open mics, first one I ever went to. And just put a timeline on that. I guess I've been doing comedy for almost 3 years.
Nice.
Yeah, because it's always saying almost. It's almost like having the blimp from Avengers, because we all like stayed in our houses for like 6 or 7 months, and
the blip.
And everything had to like catch back up, and so I took some time off, but then was like going off and on.
Did you ever move them to Zoom?
I never did a Zoom one. I couldn't do it. Like I watched one time, and I was just like, this is rough. Like, I need to figure out a way to have the crowd laughing with it. I don't know. Like,
I think it was Nate Bargatze, if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, who did a show that was in COVID quarantine protocol. Like, it had the social distancing and the masks. Everyone had a mask on. Everyone was vaccinated. And he had to have them put monitors on the tables so that way, because the mask muffles the laugh,
Yeah.
so that they would laugh, the monitors would pick up the laughter and then send it to him on stage, like via another speaker in the back, so he could hear the laughs. Because as a comic, that is,
Oh yeah.
feedback is the most important thing.
Yes.
I think, especially when it comes to like owning your craft. And the issue that I'm having currently is having jokes not do well because they're being done in front of comics who tend not to laugh at other comics.
Well, you kind of free beer, Mike. It took a while for the last when we were doing at Possum Park for like the crowds to catch on. There's comedy here, but I feel like once we get to go, like people who go there who've been there for the second time or third time came there for the comedy. Because sometimes a lot of people and you could see the crowd. Like you knew the joke was funny. You saw like them smirk and kind of do the, and you're like, damn, I got that motherfucker over there, and I got like it looks like all of them are doing that. But you need like they're at a food park, so they're like, yeah. I will say I've been impressed with Free Beer Mike, like probably for the first half, and even people hold through to the second half. Like we have people there who aren't comedians, because you can get a whole table of people come to get food and they'll sit down and watch comedy. But in the beginnings, when it's like really going in the middle of the show, like I hear like union clap applause for like open micers, and it's good.
Nice.
I enjoy the feeling when that happens. I'm like, damn, this sounds good.
Absolutely.
The comedian was trash, but that sounded good.
But they gave him support, and that's kind of like what you need. Like, I don't know. It's a very interesting world. I definitely like. I love doing comedy. It's given me my highest of highs and lowest of lows, like back to back, within like a 2-day period.
The same night.
I did for you. That's happened to you, or you've done? Like,
I'm saying like you could do a set that's really shitty somewhere, and then go to like another club, and like maybe go to 3 like open mics a night when you're like really grinding, and then like the third one finally like and it's all just like drunk comedians,
and they're all laughing at your jokes. But that's the feedback that you want. That's the feedback that you're looking for. For me, I told this on the podcast before, but. I had a show in Taylor, Texas. A full crowd came out. It was awesome. They were so willing to laugh at all the jokes and so fun. And then 2 days later, I did. I got asked last minute. Somebody dropped on a thing, and they said, "Hey, can you fill in? Do 10 minutes?" And I was like, "I can do 10 minutes. I just crushed 10 minutes. Like, let's do 10 minutes. Let's go." And I bombed, bro. I bombed. And then it was so humbling. And I took the lesson from that. I'm like, okay, I know where my strengths are. I know what kind of crowds I do better in.
Yeah.
And then now I'm working on making jokes more universal, because I feel like I do kind of like fit into a lane.
I feel like for me, the only time bombing was like really terrible for me. One, it's coming down from your high to your low for sure. Taylor, was it the Black Sparrow place?
Yeah.
Yes. I did that like around Christmas time, and I thought there would be people there, and then there was, it was a good lineup, but then there was like Christmas Eve, and like no one was down in this bar. But I made everyone laugh who was in the room. It was like maybe 2 couples, that's it, and then the host and the other comedians. But besides that, I will say the only time bombing for me is like really sucked, and I've been like really pissed, and I've been like questioning myself, is when it's also the host is like a piece of shit too. Oh, yeah. It's when if a host is like an asshole to you, and like I haven't a host with a live mic before. No, I'm not gonna say any details or names, but someone who was just like basically made fun of my name, and it was like, get the fuck off the stage, and it was just like, God damn, okay, cool, and like it was someone who like I kind of looked up to as well, and I was just kind of like, cool. And this sucks.
Yeah, no, that's a 1-2 punch. I feel like you have to. I've only seen so far very supportive mics, and then except that like heckle mics, but they're doing it on purpose.
Oh yeah, I'm going there for the smoke, bro. Like they can't touch me at heckle mics, by the way.
Right, but at a regular mic, and the guy who's doing it decides to be douchey to you.
Oh yeah.
That's not cool. And then it does suck when there's like a string of shows where you feel like, man, I didn't really do too good, or I didn't bring my A game. Like what's happening? And I don't know. There also, for me, is a lot of people that I come across that have years in the game and still play at like a very amateur league.
Yeah.
Kind of. What would you say to like people like that? Because I have heart for those people who want to pursue and like be passionate about it. But at what point do you like realize where your strengths lie?
I'm glad you love me, because I'm one of those people.
No, you're fantastic. You're funny as fuck.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm still. I think every comedian from their perspective, like if anyone's doing really good, probably getting booked on shows. I always realize that shows are like very small moments. Like you have this string of shows, and then it's kind of like people are on to the next thing, like news. So for comedy, it's just like you got to grind and grind and grind and grind, like get on these shows, and even then, like the open mic stage, and then you're breaking into like, doing the showcase stage. And even with the showcase stage, you still got to like hit people up and you be considerate and ask if you can like get on a show. But for people who've been doing it for years and just like still grinding at the things, that's something they got to ask themselves, bro. Like, I don't know, like.
Because I think about that constantly, where when I'm doing something that I love pursuing and I'm facing myself with doubts, right? Is how much of it is like, do I keep going? Do I because you ever heard of the story 3 Feet from Gold?
No.
Basically, this guy heard about the gold rush, went out to California, staked some land, found some gold, and then went back home, asked everybody to invest in him, so then he would pay them back as soon as he got all the gold. He got the loan, went back, started digging for the gold, and then the gold dried up. The gold dried up. So what he ended up doing was like just selling whatever he could, trying to break even, and then just sold it to somebody for like pennies on the dollar. Dude who bought it went to go get it checked, and it turns out that the land he had was on a fault line. So if he would have just went 3 feet this way, he would have found the gold.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So there's the question of just constantly of like, how often do you readjust? I feel like for the people who do comedy and who aren't getting any better but have years in the game and like are really just still open micers. What do you think about like comedy coaching? Because there's something if you want to be creative,
I think you can make your jokes better if you like talk to them with people. Like, I don't do that a lot when I do jokes, when I go through my process. But if someone gives me a pointer, like, or someone says something, like, I get off stage and it's like, oh, I love that, like, and says something funny about the routine I did, I'm like, sometimes like, can I use that? And there's like, yeah, like, it's about your joke, go ahead. And here's what I'll say to them. I don't know anyone's writing style, but here's like how I do mine.
Cool.
Like, when I first started, I would just go to the open mic, wait my turn. I would usually either before I went up, I would write a new bit out. Like, I would get an idea from the day. Like, I don't know, like, were you here in Austin whenever the crickets like swarmed the streets?
Was it within the last year?
No.
There
was this one time where the crickets swarmed the street, and it was right before a mic, and it was like for a whole day there was crickets everywhere in the street. You went to the grocery store, I went over in slides and like basically just dodging crickets, and I had this whole bit in my head so basically whatever, that's just the subject. I go there for the first, like, I'm doing that mic for that night, I write that bit out that comes everything out of my head, then I just spit it out, go on stage, and then edit what I need to cut out, like to trim it up and polish it off, throw that joke away, and maybe to do that joke all week, and then write something new the next week and just do that joke all week, and then do that joke all week at all the mics you do. And then honestly, I have jokes that I need to come back to because I've done that so much where I'm like, do I have new material? And I was like, oh, I have that joke I only did for 1 week, and I'll go back to it and it fucking kills.
Interesting. So you write everything out, from what I understand is you write everything out and then you just practice it, then take some steps away from it, let it sit, come back to it, and then see if 100%. You're able to I
take steps away from it, and I probably do like a whole 3 months or 4 months of mics where I do, I'm not grinding as hard as I used to, like the whole 3 or 4 a night. But
3 or 4 a night, man, that's commitment.
Well, back in the day, we can go through that because I'm a good witness for how the things were prematurely before COVID and before everything kind of blew up in Austin.
Yeah, I'd love to know more.
I started a year before COVID. So, I was going to the mics, and back then there was only like 3 or 4 a day in the first place, because you didn't have this many mics. Like on a Wednesday, you had like Kick Butt and you had Mr. Tramps, and then maybe like 2 other ones you could like try to run over there and get to them. And now it's like bonkers mics, And so that bubble that Austin, you probably maybe noticed it. There's little clan bubbles in the comedy.
That's something that gets brought up a lot, and I'm glad
100%.
It's kind of cliquey.
It's 100%. It's not kind of cliquey. It's cliquey, and that's the whole thing with the Austin clique that was like running everything. And respect to all of them, but you try to break that bubble, like, ooh, can I get in through here? And it's like, oh, hey, we kind of heard about you. Oh yeah, like, oh yeah, you be coming to the shows, it's important. It's like, oh yeah, we'll start talking. Right whenever the whole like we'll start talking, put you on showcases, COVID happened.
Yeah.
And so it shut everything down. And then when everything comes back, it was basically, the big heads moved here, and then everyone else moved here and they wanted to start their own mic, and it was just like oversaturated, and it kind of still is oversaturated in a sense.
And I totally see what you mean by that, because there are a number of mics that are going out there, some better than others, but with somebody who's like so new to comedy or who needs to get practice onto it, this is like heaven.
Oh, you're totally right. Yeah. And it's also with those clicks, it's like the Austin one, which they're still holding on very, very tight to like what their little circle of people were, you know. And then, you know, the new crowd's like holding on very tight there, and it's like even like Creek in the Cave has like, you know,
it's set
has the school bullies like, what up? I come here all the time.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting.
And I mean, I know people who like, we came up like the year whenever before COVID in Austin, and then like now the vibe is like that. Sometimes I get like me mugs, and I'm like, really, dog? Like,
yeah,
like I saw you on the come up.
Yeah, and it's weird because it reminds me a lot of like,
and no one's come
school.
up is not really huge right now.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like high school.
100%. Yeah.
Where it's just like a bunch of teenagers who never really grew up.
Yeah.
And some of them are like, and it's not all of them. Like, the thing about it is like, there are some people who are genuine sweethearts and amazing comedians and great writers and great thinkers. And there are people out there with like major talent. And then there's people there who are just kind of there to be part of like the posse.
Oh yeah, you're right about that. I never looked at it like that, I guess.
And it saturates kind of like the vibe.
And it's the scene. It's here.
But that's just from my perspective, because, you know, everyone has their own perspective. Everyone has their own groups. I may be calling out somebody's friends right now, right? And that's why I don't name names.
Someone's going to listen to him and be like, he's talking about me.
And if the shoe fits, then go fuck yourself. I'm just kidding. Like, I love everyone, right? Because
there's like 1,000 motherfuckers out there. He's talking about me.
Yeah, there's some guy in Idaho right now being like, I can't believe he's talking mess about me. I'm like, sir, I don't know you.
I haven't met an Idaho comedian yet. Maybe they'd be more down to earth. I don't know.
And they'll be like, if that comment was about me, I'll respectfully take it. Just nice, good Southern boy.
But yes, that's my opinion on the scene and the click. Yeah, I'm pretty sure people have come in and been like, clicks, bro.
Let's talk about something more fun. Tell me about your podcast, because you deep dive with your wife, I believe.
Yes.
Into some really cool comics.
So I'll start off by saying this. I am a total nerd. I am. And basically we have a podcast called Nerd Escape. Perfect. And it's a comic book podcast. And it started because of the pandemic. You know, I need to stay busy. That's another thing with comedy. Like, if I was just a comedian, I think I would get bored because I would need more things to do, you know. But we started this because basically, if you come to my house, you're going to see my comic book shelf. And I'm going to send you home with, like, you know, with some books under your arm. Sick. Like the comic book stack, like the volumes, or like, you know, maybe even a book. I'm like, yeah, take this book, you know, do whatever, just return it eventually. But my friends would tell me that all the time. And my fiance, who has a YouTube channel, which she hasn't been on in a while, but when I first met her, she was reviewing beers because she loves craft beer.
Interesting.
And she was reviewing a book she read.
So your soulmate it was somebody who was reviewing beers, and you were like, I review comics.
Well, no, like, I hadn't done that yet. And so I became on her show. It was like, what's on my boyfriend's bookshelf?
Interesting.
And then, you know, I was going through all these cool comic books. And then even my friend, too, he wasn't surprised. He's like, yeah, when I leave your house, like, you send me home with some shit that I never heard of, and it's fucking amazing. And I'm like, yeah, like, I got the cherry drip of comics if you want some.
I'd love to get some recommendations. Yeah. I'm sure the audience would, too.
I'll say best of all time. I know you asked me that earlier. Swamp Thing. Alan Moore, Swamp Thing. You know who Alan Moore is? He's the one who wrote Watchmen. He did V for Vendetta.
Sick.
And I think he did like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen as a movie as well. He's had a lot of stuff.
What makes Swamp Thing stand out for you?
Swamp Thing, he's just one, it's a nerdy subject too. It's about a guy who invented a formula that if you go to a desert and like you throw it on the desert, it'll go and find the roots and stuff, and it starts vegetation growth.
Interesting.
And so he basically found a way to like stop world hunger and stuff like that. But then these like gangsters wanted it, and so basically they came out to his lab in the bayou where they were hiding him, and they put a bomb to his chemistry set. And so when he woke up to grab the bomb, it blew up in his face, and it gets the formula all over him. He's a fireball. He runs to the water, jumps into the swamp, and the vegetation like reacts to that and eats his body. And so there's also a metaphysical concept with it where Swamp Thing is not Alec Holland. Like but he has all his memories, he's a ghost of Alec Holland wrapped in green like shrubbery.
Interesting.
And because they touch on life and death on this, here you go. This is why. He sees Alec Holland's ghost walking through the swamp, and so he eventually finds his bones and like buries them, puts them to rest. So he goes to heaven. Fast forward, Swamp Thing's girlfriend's soul gets thrown into hell, and so since he's vegetation, he can lay down in the grass and like connect his like consciousness to like just the earth. He can become a hillside and just like ravage everything. He made Batman his bitch. Okay, like he really did. He went to Gotham and made that shit a Garden of Eden, and Batman was like, give him back his girlfriend, basically. So basically his girlfriend's soul gets thrown into hell. He goes to the afterlife, goes to heaven, and there's just like, it's like, what's that, Whatever Dreams May Come with Rob Williams? Uh-huh. It's like that with Swamp Thing.
What?
And
I thought this was just like a horror movie where like a guy from the swamp comes out. And
it's so corny, the movies, but dude, I'm like, my heart is like warming up talking about this because it's so beautiful.
So deep.
And get this, when he gets his girlfriend, they can't have sex because he's a plant.
He's a vegetable.
Yeah.
It makes me think of that. There's a story. It's about like, they teach it in like philosophy and psychology of like, who are we? Where like there was a boat that basically, as it left the seaport, as it was journeying, it had to have multiple things replaced because of the storms and because of things crashing to it. And when it returned, it wasn't the same boat, but it was the same boat that left the dock. Like, you know, it questions of like, who are we as a person? If in this scenario, his skin and his body basically decompose and then turn into an amalgamation of vegetation that's then embodied by a spirit, is it really him? And that's a really good question that you impose.
Yes.
Because that seems more of like a curse or like a wraith or something along those lines.
Well, when he goes to heaven, he sees Swamp Thing, sees Alec Holland there, and he's like, oh, hey, what's up? He's like, hey, my wife's over here. You want to say hi to her? But since he's like a clone version of him, he loves his wife, so he goes like, no, I gotta go find like Abigail. Like, you know, he walks away like, and so it flirts with those emotions with this plant, but also they can't have sex, and so she's like, she still calls him Alec, like Abigail's his girlfriend, and she goes, we can't make love because you're a plant. He goes, I'll be right back, and then he like grows like a yam, like a little potato on his body, and he goes to her and gives it to her, and she's like, oh, what is this? This is like some weird connection thing you want me to do? And she's like, okay, I'll eat it. And she eats it. She's like, okay, that was nice, I guess. And the comic book it starts making her trip psychedelically. Like she basically, since she ate a part of his consciousness, they're now in this conscious world having like this like dream sex. And it's not like vulgar at all, but it's just like, basically you're reading the comic book, left to right. And the comic book turns to where you're reading it down to the bottom, so you're like flipping the pages like that, like a calendar.
Whoa.
And there's some other comic books that have taken that too, but
so cool.
That's the shit we talk about. And like we haven't touched on Swamp Thing because it's like I think like 8 volumes of the Alan Moore one, but it is trippy, dude. And
this sounds incredibly interesting. And you're also a fan of anime.
Yes, anime.
Any top 3s that you would give a shout out to?
Ooh.
Top 5 if it's too hard.
I will say. My fiance, sorry for the yawn. I will say my fiance, she put me on to Claymores. You ever heard of Claymores?
No.
I believe it's on Hulu still, but it's like about demons. Like it's kind of like old school medieval like village, but it's like these kind of demon goblin things will like come into villages and like kill a human and then become that human and like kill humans. And these Claymores, all these like assassin chicks who are half human, half Yoma. Yoma is the demon, and basically
fight for the side of good.
They fight for the side of good, and they're just like these tall, like blonde chicks with like swords, and like they fight each other as well. Claymore is really good. I can't think of a lot right now. I'm watching, of course, the Demon Slayer. That's everyone's favorite. Jujutsu Kaisen. The movie was amazing.
Just finished watching the movie. It's pretty great. I'd never watched it prior to watching the movie, and it was pretty good. Like. I like the concept. I love the idea of it, and then everything's kind of just like demon. So, but I feel like at some point it's just like everything that's ever been written has been written. Yeah, I didn't Demon Slayer. I remember I didn't watch it for a while because I was like, oh, that's so hyped. I'm not going to watch this. And then I was like, all right, the hype's down. I'm going to watch it, and it was just really fucking good. But also, I would say my favorites that I recommend top notch, Mob Psycho 100. Mob Psycho 100. Yes, it is. It's like a comedy humor thing, and it's made by the same guy who did One Punch Man. Ooh.
So did you know this? And it's actually coming out in the next episode. So you're getting a sneak peek at Nerd Escape, the next episode. Because we do a mini Manga Mania Monday segment. So it's like we talk about 2 mangas we're reading. But basically, the guy who did One Punch Man, his name is One, One. He just goes by that as his alias. And he is a terrible artist. Okay. Like illustrator. Mm-hmm. He made a web comic book that was One Punch Man. That was about the guy who does one punch, but his art was very, very scratchy. It was almost like storyboard style. And then someone else redrew it, and that's what became an anime.
Interesting.
And so Mob Psycho 100, it's actually his, like, more of his artwork. And so it's, like, kind of very scratchy. Like, and Mob is this, like, quiet kid, but the reason they call him Mob, because Mabu in Japanese means, like, background character. And so he's, like, the most boringest kid in the world, but he has, like, very, very strong telekinesis powers.
Very similar to One Punch Man, who's a very plain, normal human being with the most extraordinary feat. Like, and then there's debates of like, could One Punch Man beat Goku? Can One Punch Man beat God? Yeah, because that's the whole joke of it.
Yeah, you're totally right. He'll always win. I think I watched the animation where he fought Thanos, and then Thanos flicked the fingers and took One Punch Man out. But right before he went, Satame actually got to fucking punch him in the face. Which then
killed him,
yeah. So they both died.
It's a tie.
Pretty much One Punch Man was just like, oh, like, and then disappeared.
And then he just leaves in the most unbothered way ever.
But I would say Mob Psycho 100, that's the anime I recommend.
Cool.
Nerd Escape, at nerd_escape on IG.
Please go follow and subscribe.
The plugs.
So for me, one of the best comics that I read and watched was Full Metal Alchemist. Did you ever get into that one?
I've been told I need to. I think I watched like the first like 5 or 6 episodes. Sure. I need to get into it.
If you do watch it, you gotta. There's
it's about chemistry too.
Alchemy.
Yeah, and I love alchemy.
The idea in what alchemy originally is just the transmutation of metal into gold. Everyone was trying to make gold back then.
Yeah, Philosopher's Stone.
Right, and then the Philosopher's Stone was the missing ingredient that that can like basically make something out of nothing. Yes. Right, and in the book, these 2 brothers are basically trying to get their bodies back because they learned at a young age, they lost their mother. They knew that, like, oh, if alchemy is the law of equivalent exchange, we'll just create a body using the scientific ingredients, and then pour a little bit of blood, and then we'll bring the mom back. By doing that, they basically open the portal to God or whatever.
Yes,
and they get to know the secrets of the universe. But in exchange, the brother loses his arm. Or he loses his leg first, and then because they tried to bring back a human, and a human needs a soul, they took the brother's soul. So then he gives up his arm in order to get the soul back and bind the soul to a suit of armor.
Yes.
And they're basically looking for the Philosopher's Stone. Turns out the Philosopher's Stone isn't made out of nothing. Can I give you just a little bit of something without spoiling the whole thing?
Honestly, I'm a kind of person, if someone spoils something for me, I'll still go watch it.
Exactly.
So
Me too. Yeah. Philosopher's Stones are made out of people.
Oh, wow.
So they thought that this fabled ingredient was just made up, and it was actually transmuted by human sacrifice. And the government ended up making a bunch of Philosopher's Stones using prisoners. And
in the manga?
And if you get really into it, you end up finding out that like the government is actually a puppet government. You actually find out that there's a lot of science into it. There's other people who have like opened up the portal and stuff like that. Like his teacher had opened it to bring back her miscarried baby. But
oh my God.
And then as an exchange, she ended up losing her ability to give birth. And then just like her baby and just like the mom, it wasn't even the mom's soul. It's just a random soul. So they brought back nothing. They didn't even bring back their mom. So it's insane. And then you find out the government is staging wars in really specific areas.
No more. I want to watch it.
To make a giant Philosopher's Stone. And it's fucking...
Oh my God.
It's so great. It's one of the greatest. And it goes back to the idea of just like, what are you willing to do for the people that you love? What are you willing to put yourself through?
Oh, yeah, it's intense.
And, the love that somebody had for their brother. Like, he was basically so tenacious with everything that he did just so that he can correct the mistake that he made.
Yes, I I needed to watch it because it has to do with alchemy. And I've read some books on alchemy before, just like even like old school ingredients, like the whole pyrite. You could take a penny and put it in your pan, and it becomes fake gold or whatever. But yeah, and if in that case too, I also am a chemist, self-proclaimed and educated chemist, because that's what I got my degree in. And long story short, chemistry is just like was this niche subject that was just really easy to me.
Interesting, because that was one of my hardest subjects. So you're really good at math?
I had to get good at math by grinding at it, because I remember in like community college I hit like a wall where it was like an actual college like calculus 1 class, and I remember I was like, I think it was pre-cal, and like I was at like my wits end of being like, I can't do this fucking shit, man. And then you just grind, apply yourself, and fucking study the shit out of it over and over and over, and eventually I got pretty good at math. Yeah.
That's awesome. You said you got to even work at some research plants too to do some cool things. Is there anything that you get to that you're allowed to say that's really cool?
There's actually stuff that I'm not. Yes, but yes, my first job, I'll say this. It was at a carbon nanotube company.
Cool.
So more so, they worked with carbon nanotubes. So you know what a carbon nanotube? Mm-hmm. It's basically they just roll graphite into like tubes, but the company I worked for took that, and they're one of the only companies in the world who does this, and I don't know if there's any other competition they have, but they take the carbon nanotubes, they put it with water, and they put it with some other ingredients, and they have this special way of mixing it up, and it turns it into black liquid, and they call it molecular rebar. And I love the name when I went there, because rebar is the metal you put in cement, because cement and metal, cement and iron on a period, they have a beautiful chemical relationship. That's like, I've read books about that, where like the reason that a Roman's potteries, like they discovered, because a Roman guy who made pots like based for flowers, he was putting metal into it, and it made them like stupid strong, like they were just like reliable, and so that's how the Romans discovered that, and then they built all this stuff.
Interesting.
But back to molecular rebar, this black carbon nanotube liquid, and you can put it in lead acid batteries, like for your car. You can put it in lithium batteries. You can put it in rubbers. And I was in charge of the lead lab, where I had to like wear full bunny suits and work with lead. And I made from scratch, like the plates, the negative and positive plates. I made 2-volt batteries to test out on a mini scale their carbon nanotube liquid.
That's so scientific as fuck, son.
And then using instruments as well.
It almost makes me want to act dumber just because you sound so smart. It almost makes me want to go back to the bro idea of just all like, you talking science, son.
I'll go for days, too. But yeah, I love it. It's just, I always wondered as a kid, and here's the root of it, just like we're all made out of fucking like Lego bits, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Like in a way, that's just a saying. But even today, do you hear about the Higgs boson?
No, tell us about it.
So the particle accelerator in Europe,
the one that's creating a black hole,
the one that's causing what's that thing? The Mandela effect.
Yeah,
dude, the Mandela effect. That shit's real. I don't care what people say. Oscar Mayer Wiener, like, yeah, this just
or the Berenstain Bears.
Yeah, dude, I remember reading a Berenstain Bears book, and I think I would remember that as a kid. I was like, that's spelled weird. But the particle accelerator, basically, they take 2 protons, and they're like acres long, like huge. Like they go in a circle for miles. And basically, they take the 2 protons, smash them together to see what that's made out of. And basically, when it breaks, they do like kind of like
Isn't it an atom bomb, basically?
People were worried at first when they started they were going to open up a black hole.
Yeah, because you're having 2 particles accelerate at such a high velocity and then they crash into each other, causing a massive explosion of fission energy?
So we do fusion. We haven't done fission yet. Fusion is putting stuff together, but fission, is the bomb.
Yeah.
And I've read a good book on that too, just called The Atom. And I think they took like basically uranium and they just put a crap ton of neutrons in the nucleus.
Until it cracks,
yes. And that's what releases but you can even get energy from just like exciting. That's what light is. It's like the electrons that are in their shell, they just like leave their shell and then like come back. And like when they come back, that even has energy.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I just loved it. I love learning it. And then chemistry was just like, dude, like let me crack my knuckles and just, chemistry was always just easy for me.
Do you believe in like a nuclear future? Because they say that that's actually a sustainable, possibly healthy, environmental
if you don't
friendly.
have meltdowns and stuff.
And this is the argument that I've heard is that it's almost like a car when you see these current models that we have are old and outdated because they were built 10, 20, 30 years ago, and the ones that broke down were built even further back. And because of the mistakes that we've had and because of the innovations that we've made, building newer ones will have potentially safer mechanisms and won't lead to such incredible disasters, because that is obviously a concern, and every place has the ability to be touched by human error.
Yes. On a ecological side, I think human beings were screwed. That's just my honest opinion, because I think we've gone too far, and then we're like, oh shit, we should clean this up. Yeah, like it's gonna keep getting hotter in the summer. We're gonna keep having freakish cold weather. There's tornadoes in Texas now, bud. Like going around Louisiana. It's places like slowly changing, and we're like, oh yeah, but Kyrie Irving scored 40 points last night. What the fuck you care?
Yeah, we're not really focused on what's really important or what really matters.
And I was wondering on the way here, actually, or I guess I had a high thought. It's just like, what are we going to do with all the cars, the gas-powered cars that we have right now? Like, are we going to have a system that we're going to, recycle these things?
Like
and
a buyback?
It has to be. Like, something like that, because we eventually got to go electric. It's becoming way too late, and I at heart I'm a marine biologist. Like I minored in biology. I originally wanted to be a biologist.
And what's happening in the coral reefs is absolutely depressing.
I took a marine resource class and I took an aquatic toxicology class just for electives. Both those courses, every day I left, I was depressed, because aquatic toxicology talks about all the metals and toxins that go through a fish's body.
Dude.
And we talk about it going through human bodies too.
That's why bald eagles were going extinct, because of all the pesticides that the fish were eating. So like things were getting dumped into the water that were getting picked up by plankton that were getting eaten by fish, and then the fish were getting eaten by animals, and then their shells were becoming too soft for the mother to sit on.
That happened with the albacore, like seagull too. Like that was a thing as well. But do you know why that fish has? It is 100% the human's fault why fish have high mercury levels, because the coal that we burned to the Industrial Revolution basically sent the mercury in the air. The wind drifts caught it. It fell into the ocean, goes down to the bottom of the, basically to the whole system. And so as you go up the food chain, you bioaccumulate because you get bigger.
It's a filter system.
Yeah. And mercury, the reason it attaches to fats. And so it's going to stay in their fats. It attaches like methyls and carbon chains.
And what are fish but fat?
There's some muscle, but they are fat. But either way, their meat's going to have it. Yeah,
their meat's super fatty.
Yeah. Yes.
And we're not talking about fats like what I have on my stomach.
Yeah,
we're talking about there's high in omega-3s, and the fatty oils come from krill.
Non-trans fats.
Yeah, I'm a little educated.
Protein.
I'm a little educated. You know what I'm saying? I watch a couple YouTube videos. The Earth is flat. I stand by that. I'm just kidding.
He's right.
I actually think it's a donut shape, and that's why the sky is blue, because we're seeing the ocean from the other side.
There you go.
And that's the only reason why the donut.
I can explain why the sky is blue too.
Oh, because it's a reflection of the ocean.
No.
Is it not?
So the visible light.
I've been lied to.
Do you agree the visible light is all those colors of Roy G. Biv?
Not to humans, yeah.
To humans, right?
Yeah.
And so Roy is red. That has the highest. So basically, next would be purple and ultraviolet. Mm-hmm. Or no.
Orange, yellow.
No, red is the slowest color.
Right.
Roy G. Biv. So blue is has a high frequency.
Sure.
So it hits it takes. Actually, am I thinking this wrong? Yeah, because then it goes purple, ultraviolet. Purple has such a high frequency that it basically hits all the molecules in the air when it's coming down from the sun. So it's the last wavelength left behind.
And that's why the higher you get, the purpler it gets?
Yes, I guess so. You're totally right. And that's why when you see a sunset, you start to see the waves bending, so you see more of the yellows and the oranges and the reds.
Science, bitch. Yes. That's so cool.
Yeah. It's all those Homer Simpson fathers. There you go.
This is the perfect time to bring something up at the water cooler and just be like, you know why you see this?
Yes, but aquatic, I take the whole, because my dad is a fisherman. I grew up basically just being at home. I've grown up Houston City, and I've grown up rural in the middle of nowhere, living in a trailer in the woods with my dad.
Wow.
I've done all that. I've been in the city and got beat up because I was too country. Then I moved to the country and got beat up because I was too ghetto and country living in like Dallas.
And there was no winning for you, buddy. What happened?
And eventually, I swear to God, eventually the style you're seeing right now, eventually it happened in 8th grade. This girl cheated on me. She kissed some other girl. No, I was in 7th grade. She was in 8th grade. Okay. But
nice. Going after the middle school cougars.
Yeah. And basically she kissed like some other guy and then broke up with me. Or I broke up with her. I don't know. I think she broke up with me, actually. That's how sad it was. And they wanted to get back with me. And I was like, no. And then after a long relationship, she bought me like, she changed me. Like she bought me like puka shells and like, you know, wanted me to rock like Pacific Sun and like bullshit. And I think when we broke up, I remember like tearing the puka shells, like, fuck you. Like throwing them on the ground. They're shattered everywhere. And I remember I was just like, I'm just going to wear my Jimi Hendrix shirts, my fucking
combat
pants.
Boots.
You know, I bought these the other day. I like these.
Those are really nice. Those are some New Balances.
New Balance skateboard shoes.
Because you usually got some boots on, bro.
Do I?
Do you? I thought you rocked like the Doc Martin style, kind of like the.
Well, those are my work boots. Those are steel toes. If I do rock those, they're steel toes. Those are man boots, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm always seeing you with some man boots on, man.
Okay.
Like some work boots.
I rock some Vans and some whatever else, but where are we at on that?
So we're talking about you being a marine biologist. We're talking about you or having like the marine biologist at heart. We talked about your comic books. Since this podcast is very motivational, inspirational centered, I'm wondering, I want to take it back to the comic books or any book in general. Is there any quotes you live by any characters that really have impacted your life?
Oh man, there is. Let me think of it. I would say a character I live by, and maybe I'll think of a quote as I'm speaking about it. Say what you want about the right and left who take this book and make it what they wanted to make it. I'm a huge fan of Ayn Rand. You ever read Ayn Rand? So basically Ayn Rand was from Russia. If you don't know, people who know about her are like, oh, God damn, why are you talking about this bitch? But Ayn Rand was from Russia. She grew up in Soviet Russia, actually escaped, came to America, and it was like the 1940s and 30s when like capitalism was like popping off, you know, and bubbling. And she wrote a book about like a person living in Russia and like wanting to escape. Like, it was one of her first books, but she made up the philosophy of objectivism. And objectivism means like the philosophy of self, where like selfish isn't a bad word. And it's like, to the sense, like she's like, oh, if your husband, like, it's honestly, it's anti-altruistic. And so I don't live by this philosophy. I don't. But for her, it's a struggling artist named Howard Rourke, and he's an architect. And he's like the black sheep of his, like, he lives with his friends, and his friend is like the valedictorian of the school from they're going to leave for college and go to New York. And basically, if someone, he goes like, all right, make this art piece. Basically, he calls it an art piece. Do the blueprint for this house. So he does it, or this building. He does it. If they say, can you change this? Howard Rourke goes, he'll be on his last penny. He'll be broke as shit, and he'll be like, no, this is the way I built it. This is the way it's going to go. Because, I don't know, he just saw the life that way. And like, Ayn Rand just kind of used that platform medium, that story, to explain her philosophy and like how she would be. And
where you're almost unable to be persuaded by anyone because of your vision. You're so relentless with your goal of achieving it the way you want it to. Yeah. That's pretty dope.
But it's a little, like, comes with a little softer than that, because there's like a love story in it. There's like really good characters. And then Atlas Shrugged, Ayn Rand, after that book blew her up, made her very successful, she was rolling with the Rockefellers, dude. She was rolling with, she starts talking about inventors. I will say that the high side of that book is all the industrialists. So imagine Elon Musk, who are some, like Bezos. Imagine they just disappeared off the face of the earth and we couldn't find them. They could do it.
They could, yeah, absolutely. They could go to space altogether.
They could do it. They were like, oh, the one we didn't tell you about. It's like, where's Jeff Bezos?
At this point, it's like a group of like 300 of them. And they could just take off.
So this book, though, maybe this is a metaphor for that, and it was just like placed later on in the future. Someone is going around the world and grabbing all the industrialists. So the copper guy who wrote the copper stuff, there's a guy named Hank Reederin who made his own elemental metal, like basically made his own, what's it called when you mix two metals together? Basically a metal alloy. So when you make a metal alloy, you're just mixing two metals together and it makes it stronger. He made his own metal alloy and no one knows it, and he keeps it a secret, but it's putting everyone out of business. And
interesting.
So everyone's like, he should share his formula with us, kind of thing. But it's like, her books are like very hardcore capitalist. But this guy who's snatching everyone away, all the industrialists, and he's basically taking on the rich industrialists who are smart, though, very smart people. He invented a engine, like the characters find this abandoned engine, and it makes energy off it makes energy off atmospheric electricity.
Wow.
And that's like, I was like, when they found this, and I was like, I think this makes energy off atmospheric electricity. So you don't need gas, you don't need a fuel, you just turn it on and it provides power. And it's like a mini like blueprint, like it's like someone made it. And so the guy who made it just disappears because he doesn't want to do that. And it's because, like, imagine the people who made those cars out there. I always get pissed on the cars, and I also guns too. If someone in life didn't invent the car, invent the gun, like maybe someone else would have done it. Maybe the group of people would have done it, but maybe not. I think a lot of things are privileges that we take for granted. It's like, this is my car.
It really is, because like in wherever there's a will, there's a way. And you're not going to stop people from doing the things that they want most, because there's something that's innate in humans where if we get an idea in our head and we're relentless about it, we're able to achieve it. So if that thought happens to be something destructive like violence, it doesn't matter whether all the guns in your country are taken away. You resort to knives and swords and nunchucks, and then there's a new weapon that's invented that bypasses all the laws. It just doesn't matter what the rules are. There's always somebody willing to look and break every single set rule.
Yes. I do have the quote, though, from the book.
Let's go.
So it's not from Fountainhead. For anyone that hasn't read Ayn Rand, likes reading books, read The Fountainhead. That's my favorite book. It's beautiful. Even read Romantic Manifesto. It's actually the nonfiction where she just like describes what pretty much language is. It's amazing. Basically, everything we do is an abstract concept that we all agreed on, pretty much. Like,
right.
We made noises and we symbolized them, and then we're just like, this. Combining these makes this word. Like, this is table and also mesa, and that's also a universal thought that we all have.
Right.
Which is in a different sound.
Right.
That's what Ayn Rand will get you thinking about.
Real introspective.
But my quote is from Atlas Shrugged, and it's like, there are no evils. There's only your refusal to think. And so basically it's like, it was someone who said money is the root of all evil. And this guy started defending money. He described money as like, when you make money at your job and you go pay like the grocery store, that represents the energy that the farmers did and that the people who work there did, and you have this energy too. So this money represents like
it's a transference of energy.
It's a transfer of energy. And back then, there wasn't so much printed money, and money now they've just like bum rushed it like on all of us,
and they're not backing it by anything.
And then people were compiling it, But that stuck with me. And then it was kind of almost like back in the day, like someone who watches too much Fox News, and just like, and then this guy told us like, because money is the root of all evil, and he responds like, there are no evils, just your refusal to think. And you kind of think about your way of everything out of that, because there's different ways, and that. I grew up Catholic,
Same,
not very strong Catholic.
Kicked
My mom,
out of two Catholic schools.
I still pray. Okay, yeah, I haven't been to Catholic school. I still pray to the good Lord,
Sure.
But also, I think that kind of reading and that kind of philosophy and like self-powering, like I saw myself in hard work, so I would do like nothing to like, because dude, college was hard. College sucked.
Sure, it did.
College and working a full-time job, like it took me. I have a joke actually. It's a lot of people. It's from Tommy Boy. It's like a lot of people go to college for 8 years, and David Spade goes, "Yeah, they're called doctors." I probably took me almost 10 years to get my bachelor degree, but it was like taking breaks and then saving some money and everything, and I fucking just did it.
It's a struggle, and I commend people who are able to do it and complete it, because it is it's an amazing feat. At the same time, I also look at it and I'm just like, it's not for everybody, and it shouldn't be for everything. Yeah, because a lot of the jobs now you can learn from experience. Like I think you should go to school if you're going to be a doctor. Like you need that. We should encourage more people to do so. We should encourage more people to do that. And same thing with like being a teacher. I'm hoping that I wish teachers would pay more, because they're educating like the future of our our future generations and stuff. But it's not for everything. It's like, if you want to learn how to code, if you want to learn how to do, if you want to learn how to design art, if you want to learn how to do music, if you want to learn how to podcast, if you want to learn how to like speak on a stage, you need less theory and more practice, and institutions that actually allow you to become that type of person that you want to be.
Yeah, that's very right. And going back to speaking on stage, like I remember whenever I first started speaking on stages, even in like class stuff, like I had the leg shake. You ever had that?
I always get the leg shake, the nervousness. Yeah. I still get off stage and shake, because and that's why I love being on stage so much, because it's that adrenaline spike without having to do some sort of like external cocaine type drug.
I actually have a joke where, and I should reverse it because actually my leg used to shake and now it doesn't anymore because I have a cadaver ACL in my leg.
Wow.
So basically I tore my ACL. Like I like playing basketball. I actually played basketball yesterday, but basically I tore my ACL playing basketball and I was in denial like 3 times and I heard it over and over and I just completely ripped it where it was just like a shredded nothing.
So you got a dead guy's tendon in you?
And so I have a joke where I never shook before, but now I do because he was a real nervous Nelly. But it's also just like, it's not a big deal. I just have sleep paralysis and I pretty much joke son of is like pretty much this dark figure stands over me and like plucks my kneecap and then he's like, I can't rest without the part of me back. And I'm just like, wake up from my sleep paralysis and I'm like, I can't rest with your dead ass bothering me. Like, no way.
That's funny.
In the next life, don't check organ donor. Yeah.
I know that you are currently involved in multiple projects and you have so many things going on. And like you said, if you're not doing something, you get bored or you get stagnant. What kind of habits do you do in order to like create balance amongst all the things that you have your fingers dipped in?
Oh man, there's still the comic book I need to create. That's one thing. That's a project that I was trying to pick up with a friend, and we need to get back into it because I want to write this comic book. I'm really into, I guess a hobby of mine is I listen to podcasts, of course, but my favorite podcast lately is I love ghost story podcasts. Like I love the ones where it's not like just some voice narrating, here's a story about this scary thing. And then it's more, they get the actual person they experience, they put them on the podcast and that person tells it from their perspective.
Cool. And
to me, I don't know. I just been getting into. There's like one called "You Can See Me in the Dark." That's a really good one. And there's actually one based in Austin where they do kind of seance stuff. Not seance, but they take an empath to these places and they investigate it first. Night Owl podcast.
Interesting.
And it's here in Austin, so they do restaurants here in Austin that are haunted.
This man had a heart attack after saying his bill was $14.99. He's like, for a burger.
So that's been good, but it's also got me to thinking like about death and like ghosts and everything like that. So I want to make a comic book called Sellout Ghost, and basically it's about a ghost named Jasper. Okay, you got the sellout part already, and he realized like he can break the tether and like come back to this side, but he could be sitting here with me and you doing the podcast right now. So he's a dead guy who's like one of the only ghosts like who can like just he's so famous. He's a rock star. He's already had it made. So when you jump in the comic book, he's like on a talk show with like David Letterman or something, and it's like, so how'd you get so big? And and he has like people who follow him, and it's supposed to be just like a sarcastic like quiff on like you
never get really famous until you're dead.
Yes, right, something like that. Like, or I think it was like ghosts hate, or like it's like people hate him. Like ghosts want to be him, or no, ghosts hate him and people want to be him. And it's just like Jasper the ghost.
So silly.
And, when he does drugs, like ectoplasm falls out, and his like little following crowd like eats it up or something.
It's so funny. I'd love to see that fleshed out.
But
man.
then also he has a daughter who he really cares about, and an ex-wife who he won't leave alone.
And he keeps haunting her.
Yeah.
He's like, till death, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of rails you can go with it. So balancing-wise, though, man, work, podcast, honestly, a wedding. I'm about to get married.
Congratulations.
Everyone, woo! I'm married in about, I don't know, I'll probably be married by the time this comes out. Right?
Yeah, you'll be married. Congratulations. Send likes and subscribes to Jublar for a wedding gift.
Oh, yeah, let me know. But yes, dude, I have trouble balancing my stuff as well because we've been falling back on the podcast. Comedy-wise, that's the whole reason why we started Free Beer Mike is because me and Riley used to run into each other at the mics, and that's how we became friends. And basically when we got back and we saw each other at mics, I was like, man, this grinding shit sucks. And now there's like a surplus of comedians in town. And it was straight up just like, let's start a mic. Like I know everyone else is doing it, let's start a mic. And then he had the idea for free beer comedy, and then his friend ran Possum Park, and it was just like, this is lining up too perfectly. And at first I was kind of against giving free beer out because I thought people would get wild, but everyone's pretty chill at Free Beer Mics.
No, for real. You have like some of the most nicest, calmest people there. They're very respectful.
I think towards 10:30, like even I'll like, what happened after 10:30?
A little rowdy.
Yeah, it gets a little rowdy.
But the spaces that you have and the mics that you hold are really like, in my opinion, some of the higher quality mics that you can actually attend.
Yeah, they're fun. Free Beer Mike. Follow us at Free Beer Comedy.
And I love how y'all give out free beer. It's just like it's an all good out time. I don't even drink.
I love and I love how y'all give out free beer.
I do. Yeah. I think that's pretty cool because you're doing something different. If somebody wants to go up for the first time, what helps them get on the stage? A little bit of liquid courage. Oh, yeah. You know what I'm saying?
And we're actually, because at first it was just like we wanted to get the mid act, and we're kind of still doing the mid act with the comedian in the middle, but now we're just kind of giving it to the people and just making a mic. We started asking breweries, we're going to start asking every brewery, hey, could you provide a case of beer every month? And if we get a little syndicate going where we have this brewery donated
Sponsored
this week,
by.
this, and we've already done that with Blue Owl. So cool. Blue Owl down the street with that. So shout out to Blue Owl. The beer is delicious. And people got a lot of beer. It's Austin, but come on, where's your low feels, dog?
Yeah, and then it's cool because you do have tons of local breweries that are mom and pop shop owned, and you're really supporting the community. This is why I appreciate you. This is why I wanted you on the mic, because you're doing something that's supporting the community. You're creating your own path. You're doing your own thing in a way that's very unique. Plus, it's not just all comedy. You have your fingers dipped in other places, and I love that about you. You're a true creative at heart.
Oh yeah, and I always think that too, very community. Possum Park felt very, very community. It was so tight knit. But I always thought too when I came back, it's where you been, Jublar? I was I was gonna stop doing comedy, but then I just thought, are my comedian friends drunk on Thursdays? I think I could get them a little tipsy with some free beer,
and get them to go up.
And it just came that, and then eventually it's now it's the beer helps, but now I think even if we took out the beer, it would be still a good community. But
I still think so, yeah.
The beer helps. It'll still be there. Don't worry, everyone. Bring your own beer.
To end this podcast, I want to ask you, is for the person who's new to comedy, new to their passion, who is looking to possibly start out and try their new thing, because maybe they too love action figures or comic books or whatever they're interested in, they want to monetize on it, they want to do a project behind it, they want to do something along those lines. What advice would you give to those starting out? Because I feel like the hardest step is always the first, and then until you find your motion, you find your voice, you get your groove, it feels like it's very uneasy. What would you say to those people?
Number one, just even when learning something new, just apply yourself. That sounds so simple, but just fucking apply yourself. Buy a book on it, study it, because I'm a very meticulous person where if I can't understand something, I take my time to read a book, learn about it, and even then I'm still kind of nervous to even do that thing. If I want to, try something new, and eventually you just got to look bad at doing it. You got to be bad at doing something before you get good. And I'm probably not the first person to say that, but that's just the truth. Even if you're not bad and you're doing an all right job, you go to your first mic set and you're like, I fucking killed. And then from then on, you kill and kill. You can always get better at stuff, for sure. So things that I'm doing long term, I can always get better at them, even at my job. That's why I always feel like reading is important. I read a lot of novels, a lot of comic books, and even if it's just enjoyable, you're still expanding your mind.
And that's fantastic advice, man. And I take a lot of that to heart, especially because I bombed at my very first open mic. And it's because I didn't give any spacing to laugh. I just told my jokes blah, 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 blah. And then if I would have quit right then and there, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. Yeah. Because that very second mic, I got a couple of laughs. And then I'm like, okay, there's a game to this. And it can seem discouraging when in your first attempt, you don't do great. Some people knock it out of the park first time. Right? Some people don't. Sometimes it takes a while to get their groove. And everything you said really does help with getting your feet established. Put some feet on the ground. Keep at it. Suck so that you can become better.
And accept sucking. I don't love bombing, but when I'm bomb, I still kind of walk off with a smile on my face, and I was like, whatever, I'll work on that joke. I'll get that next time. Or sometimes it's about just the crowd. You got to do that. My first time I ever did a mic, I did pretty good. I'll just say the subject of the joke was about pooping yourself mixed with The Matrix. So maybe I'll do it on Thursday. I'll probably bring it back. That's my first joke I ever did. But I remember every poop joke I made about pooping yourself, the bartender at Kick Butt Coffee just cackled laugh. So I'm just like, damn, the bartender loves poop jokes. And that got a laugh too. So
I love it. I fucking love it, dude. And it's that old monk saying where it's like the master is willing to fail more times than the youngster will ever try, right?
Oh wow. Yeah.
It's those things of like you fail, but it's not an L, it's a learn, it's a lesson. You grow from the mistakes that you make, and then you still have a good time. Like you even find joy in the smaller things, like making one person laugh. If you can gain just as much out of making one person laugh as you can make 1,000 people laugh, then I think that you really do have like something to go. You have something to contribute to the culture and can grow really big in it.
From one person, which I've done before, to 1,000. Let's do it, Nate.
Hell yeah, Jublar. I appreciate you for being a guest on this podcast. You were an absolute pleasure to talk to today.
Real life fist bump. There you go.
Let the people know where that they can find you.
You can find me at Jublar McPherson Comedy on IG, I believe. There you can either look it up or you could be linked to Nerd_Escape, which is my podcast about comic books. Me and my fiance, we're so cute. We're actually on YouTube now too. And so you can see the comic books. And also follow at Free Beer Comedy. It is the open mic comedy showcase, FBM, also standing for freaking best mic in town. But yes, we give out free beer. We have a good time. Me and the co-host, Riley Pridgett, try not to get too loaded before the show's over. And I just got married. So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Hell yeah, man. Enjoy your wedding. Enjoy your honeymoon. And thank you again for being a guest today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Carpe Natem Podcast. If you loved this episode, please consider leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Music or iTunes. It takes 30 seconds for you, but for us, it helps spread positivity to more people during these chaotic times. It helps build a community, and it makes me smile from ear to ear. Speaking of community, we have a Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Carpe Natem. Just answer the 3 questions to get access to some extra motivation and inspiration for your timeline. If you would like to support the podcast, screenshot this episode and share this to your story and tag me at Carpe Natem 114. That's going to be my handle across all platforms, including TikTok. So if you would like to give me a follow, I would genuinely appreciate it. If you haven't already, please rate us and subscribe on Spotify or anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. And lastly, you can find all episodes, linked to resources and opportunities for coaching and mentoring from me at carpenatem114.com. I cannot thank you enough for spending part of your day with me. You are all rock stars taking the necessary steps to be your best selves, willing to do whatever it takes, and ready to grab life by the butt cheeks. So until next time, this is Nate De La Hoya-Reynoso signing off.